At exactly 9:17 Greenwich Mean Time, every satellite orbiting Earth went dark. Not destroyed. Not hacked. Silent. For 3 full seconds, humanity lost the sky. Navigation systems froze mid-route. Aircraft cockpits flashed warning signals. Military radar stations across the globe suddenly saw nothing but empty static. Billions of phones disconnected from networks at the same instant. Then everything came back online. But by then, it was already too late. Because something had appeared above the Atlantic Ocean. At first, people thought it was a storm front. Live weather satellites showed a black mass spreading across the upper atmosphere faster than any cloud system in recorded history. News stations interrupted broadcasts. Scientists stared at screens in confusion. The shape kept growing, stretching, tearing, until the sky itself split open. A glowing fracture burned across the heavens from horizon to horizon, flooding the clouds with blue-white light. It looked less like a portal and more like reality itself had been ripped apart by invisible claws. Every city on Earth saw it. New York, London, Tokyo, Cairo, Rio. Millions ran into streets pointing phones upward while others simply stood frozen in silence. Then the first ship emerged. It descended slowly through the rupture like a monster rising from deep water. Black metal covered its surface in overlapping armored plates, each one larger than a football field. No engines were visible. No sound came from it. And it was enormous. Nearly 30 kilometers long. People screamed when they realized it blocked out the sun. More ships followed behind it. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Within minutes, the entire sky above the Atlantic was filled with alien vessels hanging motionless over Earth's atmosphere. Global panic erupted instantly. Traffic collapsed in every major city. Emergency lines overloaded beyond capacity. Supermarkets were emptied in under an hour as terrified civilians fought over food and water. Military forces worldwide moved to DEFCON emergency status. Nuclear submarines vanished beneath oceans. Fighter squadrons launched non-stop patrols. Missile defense systems activated across multiple continents. But none of it seemed to matter. Because the alien fleet did nothing. It simply hovered there. Watching. As if studying humanity. Inside NORAD headquarters, General Marcus Hale stared at the tactical display with growing disbelief. "How many?" he asked quietly. An operator swallowed hard. "We've stopped counting, sir." The massive screen showed red symbols spreading across Earth's orbital map faster every second. Any communication attempts? No response. Another officer turned from his station, pale-faced. "Sir, they're positioning directly above population centers." Silence filled the command room. Everyone understood what that meant. This wasn't exploration. It was conquest. Across the world, governments attempted emergency broadcasts to calm civilians, but fear spread faster than information ever could. Religious leaders declared the apocalypse had arrived. Social media exploded with theories, prayers, and live streams of the ships overhead. Then every screen on Earth flickered. Phones, televisions, billboards, computers, even vehicle dashboards. All displaying the same image. A tall figure appeared against a dark background. Humanoid. Thin. Pale silver skin. Eyes glowing gold like molten metal. No one understood the language it spoke at first. Then, suddenly, the words shifted. Perfect English. Then Mandarin. Arabic. Russian. Hindi. Spanish. Every human heard the message in their native language simultaneously. People of Earth. Your species has entered territory governed by the Galactic Dominion. The alien's voice was calm. Emotionless. Like someone announcing weather conditions. Your civilization has been evaluated and deemed technologically inferior. Resistance is statistically irrational. Around the globe, billions listened in horrified silence. The alien continued. Surrender peacefully. Compliance guarantees survival. For several seconds after the transmission ended, Earth remained completely still. No response came from any government. No military action. No announcement. Only fear. Then classified channels began exploding with a single terrifying phrase. Galactic Dominion. The name had existed for decades inside conspiracy forums and leaked intelligence reports. Rumors of an ancient interstellar empire responsible for disappearing civilizations near unexplored star systems. Most people dismissed the stories as fiction. Now those stories were floating directly above Earth. In Washington, emergency officials rushed the president toward a secured underground bunker. In Moscow, nuclear launch crews awaited orders with trembling hands. In Beijing, military satellites tracked orbital weapon signatures that exceeded human understanding. Humanity had less than 20 minutes to decide whether to surrender. And for 8 long minutes, nobody answered. The alien fleet remained perfectly motionless above Earth's atmosphere, like executioners waiting for permission. Then a transmission suddenly appeared across every open military frequency on the planet. Weak. Distorted. Human. Inside the Orbital Defense Station Aegis, Captain Elias Ward wiped blood from a cut above his eye as warning sirens echoed through the station corridors. Around him, exhausted crew members scrambled between weapon terminals. Most of Earth didn't even know Aegis existed. Officially, humanity had no orbital defense network. Officially. Ward grabbed the station microphone. "Patch this everywhere," he ordered. "Sir," one technician whispered nervously, "that includes civilian channels." Ward stared out the reinforced observation window at the impossible fleet covering Earth below. Then he nodded once. "Good." The transmission went live globally. Billions heard the same tired human voice crackle through speakers. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the UN Defense Platform Aegis." He paused, looking directly at the alien warships above Earth. Then he spoke 6 words that would change human history forever. "Yeah, humanity doesn't surrender." A second later, the first human railgun fired. The railgun round crossed orbit in less than 4 seconds. Inside the Aegis defense platform, warning sirens screamed as magnetic launch systems overheated from the shot. The entire station trembled violently. Sparks burst from ceiling panels while crew members struggled to keep their footing. Captain Elias Ward never blinked. His eyes stayed locked on the tactical display tracking the tungsten slug hurtling toward the nearest Dominion cruiser. Nobody aboard the station truly expected success. Human weapons weren't supposed to work against an interstellar empire. The Dominion vessel didn't even move. Its shields remained active, glowing faintly across the black hull like a thin layer of blue glass. Then the railgun struck. For one impossible moment, the alien ship bent inward around the impact point. And exploded. A fireball erupted across Earth's upper atmosphere so bright it could be seen in daylight. Burning fragments the size of skyscrapers spiraled away from the cruiser as the vessel split apart from the center. Inside Aegis, complete silence filled the command deck. One technician whispered shakily, Did we just kill it?" No one answered. Across Earth, billions watched the burning wreckage streak through the sky like a falling star. Then people started cheering. In crowded streets. In underground shelters. In military bunkers. Humanity had just proven the invaders could die. But aboard the Dominion flagship Eternal Judgment, panic spread rapidly. Supreme Commander Vile stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "Report," he demanded. A pale-faced officer turned toward him. "Cruiser 7 destroyed, Commander." "How?" "We are uncertain." Vile's expression darkened. "No primitive kinetic weapon should penetrate Dominion shields." Another officer interrupted nervously. "Human military forces are mobilizing globally." The tactical map expanded across the bridge. Red markers ignited everywhere on Earth. Missile silos opening. Aircraft launching. Submarines surfacing. Orbital defense systems activating. Humanity was preparing for war. Vile slowly straightened in his command chair. "Reclassify the species threat assessment," he ordered quietly. "Humans are no longer considered harmless." Below, Earth erupted into chaos. Fighter jets screamed into the skies despite overwhelming odds. Naval fleets abandoned safe harbors to engage alien vessels approaching coastlines. Hidden missile batteries emerged from mountainsides and deserts, firing non-stop toward orbit. For the first time in human history, nations stopped caring about borders. Nothing mattered except survival. Near the Pacific Ocean, 3 Dominion landing craft descended toward California. They never reached shore. A civilian cargo ship suddenly accelerated directly toward them. Dominion scanners detected no weapons on board. Only a human crew refusing evacuation orders. Seconds before impact, the cargo ship detonated. The explosion consumed 2 landing craft instantly, sending flaming debris crashing into the ocean. Recovered Dominion recordings captured one confused alien officer asking, "Why would civilians do that?" No one answered him. Because humans already understood something the Dominion didn't. If Earth fell, there would be nothing left worth surviving for. Across the planet, similar acts unfolded. In Japan, fighter pilots rammed alien drones after exhausting their missiles. In Eastern Europe, anti-air crews kept firing while orbital bombardments collapsed entire city blocks around them. In the Indian Ocean, a damaged submarine surfaced beneath a Dominion destroyer and manually overloaded its reactor. Again and again, humans chose resistance over survival. Dominion analysts struggled to understand it. Human battle behavior ignored logic. Ignored casualty projections. Ignored fear. Inside the alien flagship, combat footage played across massive tactical screens. One recording showed a wounded human marine dragging himself across burning wreckage toward a disabled missile launcher. Both legs were broken. His armor was melting from heat. Yet he kept crawling. A Dominion observer spoke softly. "He is dying." The human reached the launcher. Fired. Destroyed a dropship overhead. Then collapsed motionless beside the weapon. Silence spread across the command bridge. Commander Vile stared at the screen with growing unease. "What motivates them?" he asked quietly. An older strategist answered after a long pause. "They are emotionally driven." Another officer shook his head slowly. "No, emotional species surrender under pressure." He looked back toward the battlefield displays. "These creatures become more violent." Hours passed. Human casualties climbed into the millions. Entire cities burned beneath orbital strikes. Still, Earth refused surrender. Then came the transmission that changed Dominion morale forever. A heavily damaged human destroyer drifting near lunar orbit had been surrounded by alien interceptors. Escape was impossible. Instead of retreating, the human captain opened a public frequency. His face was covered in blood. Fires burned behind him as alarms screamed across the bridge. Yet somehow, he smiled. "You know what scares us most about you aliens?" Dominion officers attempted to jam the signal. Too late. Nearby ships heard every word. "You think pain will stop us?" The human captain activated collision thrusters. "That's why you're going to lose." The destroyer accelerated directly into the alien formation. The impact annihilated 4 Dominion ships instantly. Inside the flagship bridge, Commander Vile watched the explosion in stunned silence. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to hurt the enemy. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Dominion felt fear. 3 days into the invasion, humanity should have collapsed. That was the conclusion reached by every Dominion strategist. Earth's orbital defenses were failing. Major cities burned across multiple continents. Communication grids had shattered under constant bombardment, and casualty estimates had already crossed into the tens of millions. No developing species had ever survived this stage of Dominion conquest. Yet Earth still fought. Human resistance was becoming more organized. Supreme Commander Vile stood aboard the Eternal Judgment, staring down at the planet through the massive observation glass of his flagship. The blue world below should have looked defeated. Instead, it looked angry. "Explain this," Vile said coldly. A Dominion analyst activated several tactical projections. "Human counterattacks are increasing despite catastrophic losses," the officer reported nervously. "Their military coordination has improved by 43% in the last 12 hours. That is irrational." "Yes, Commander." Vile's eyes narrowed. Humanity continued adapting faster than projected. Every time the Dominion destroyed a defense network, another appeared somewhere unexpected. Hidden bunkers activated beneath mountains. Underground factories began producing weapons non-stop. Civilian populations joined combat operations willingly. It made no sense. Then a new alert flashed across the command deck. "Unidentified energy signature detected, Arctic region." Vile turned sharply. "Source?" "We don't know." The officer's voice trembled slightly. "But the energy readings exceed anything previously recorded on Earth." Far below the frozen Arctic ice, something ancient awakened. 2 miles beneath the surface, inside a facility hidden from every satellite on Earth, alarms echoed through steel corridors buried in darkness. Black Veil. The name officially didn't exist. For nearly 60 years, only a handful of world leaders had known the truth hidden beneath the ice. Humanity was not entirely unprepared for alien contact. Because in 1968, astronauts on the Moon had discovered something impossible buried beneath lunar rock. An abandoned alien engine. Not human. Not Dominion. Something older. Something far more dangerous. Human scientists had spent decades secretly reverse engineering fragments of its technology deep beneath the Arctic, hidden from the world. Most experiments failed. Some ended catastrophically. But humanity learned enough. Inside Black Veil's central chamber, President Naomi Keller stared at the enormous machine rising from the floor. Blue symbols pulsed across its surface like living light. Massive circular structures rotated slowly around a glowing core suspended in midair. The air itself vibrated with energy. Nearby technicians worked frantically at their stations. One scientist looked up nervously. "Madam President, the reactor is stable." "For how long?" Keller asked. The scientist hesitated. "We don't know." That answer again. Nobody fully understood the machine. Humanity had spent decades studying alien technology while barely comprehending the laws behind it. But now Earth was running out of time. Another explosion shook dust from the ceiling above them. Even this deep underground, the distant violence of orbital bombardment could still be felt. Keller looked toward the glowing engine. And the weapon system? Silence filled the chamber. Finally, an older engineer spoke quietly. "We've never tested it at full power." Several technicians stopped working. Nobody wanted responsibility for activating something humanity barely controlled. Keller's expression hardened. "Then today seems like a good day to try." Above Earth, Dominion forces prepared final invasion deployment. Thousands of dropships descended through the atmosphere simultaneously, their black hulls glowing red from atmospheric friction. Massive carriers repositioned above major cities while orbital cannons locked onto surviving military targets. Commander Vile watched the operation with satisfaction. At last, Earth was breaking. Then the Arctic exploded. A column of blue-white light erupted upward from the frozen wasteland with enough force to split clouds apart across hundreds of kilometers. Dominion sensors instantly malfunctioned. Alarms screamed across every ship in orbit. "Commander," an officer shouted in panic. "We're losing targeting systems." Another voice followed immediately. "Shield networks destabilizing. Navigation failure across multiple sectors." Vile gripped the edge of his command console. "What is happening?" Nobody answered. Because nobody understood it. The blue energy wave expanded outward from Earth like a pulse moving through space itself. As it passed through Dominion vessels, entire systems shut down instantly. Weapons offline. Communications dead. Shield generators collapsing. For the first time since arriving at Earth, the Dominion fleet lost control. And humanity attacked immediately. Hidden railgun stations emerged from underground silos. Nuclear submarines launched coordinated missile strikes from beneath polar ice. Fighter squadrons that had been waiting silently in hidden airfields surged upward toward crippled alien ships. Inside Black Veil, warning sirens screamed as the ancient reactor overloaded beyond safe limits. Technicians shouted over each other while sparks erupted from control panels. The system's destabilizing. "We're exceeding containment." President Keller never looked away from the glowing machine. "Keep it online," she ordered. Outside, burning Dominion warships began falling from the sky. For the first time since the invasion began, the Galactic Dominion realized humanity had been hiding secrets of its own. The battle above Earth lasted 11 brutal hours. By the end of it, orbit looked like a graveyard. Burning Dominion warships drifted through space in shattered pieces while human fighters darted between clouds of molten debris. Fragments of destroyed carriers fell into Earth's atmosphere like artificial meteors, leaving trails of fire across the night sky. For the first time in 400 years, the Galactic Dominion was losing. Commander Vile stood aboard the Eternal Judgment as damage reports flooded the bridge. Shield integrity below 30%. Carrier groups destroyed over the Pacific. Human strike formations approaching lunar orbit. Every update sounded worse than the last. Vile could not understand it. Humanity should have collapsed already. Their ships were primitive. Their fleets smaller. Their technology inferior. Yet humans kept attacking with terrifying aggression. A tactical officer activated combat footage from orbit above Europe. The recording showed a crippled human cruiser drifting powerless after suffering catastrophic damage. Fires burned across the hull while escape pods launched from broken sections. "Destroy it," Vile ordered. But before Dominion ships could fire, the human vessel suddenly reignited emergency thrusters. Straight toward the enemy formation. The explosion tore apart 2 Dominion destroyers instantly. Another recording appeared. Human forces across several major cities had intentionally shut down electrical grids, forcing Dominion targeting systems to rely on visual tracking instead of thermal detection. Millions of civilians willingly sat in darkness while battles raged overhead. Again and again, humans turned disadvantage into opportunity. Vile stared at the screens in frustration. They sacrificed too much. An older strategist beside him spoke quietly. "No, Commander." He pointed toward the battlefield. "They simply decide survival is worth the cost." That answer unsettled Vial. Dominion soldiers fought for order. For command. Humans fought for each other. And that made them dangerous. Intercepted human transmissions flooded Dominion systems non-stop. The aliens expected tactical coordination and retreat orders. Instead, they heard families saying goodbye. Doctors continuing surgeries while bombardments shook hospitals. Civilians volunteering for evacuation defense lines. And soldiers? Laughing. One communications officer replayed a recording twice, unable to understand it. A young human pilot sat inside a critically damaged fighter while warning alarms screamed throughout the cockpit. Blood covered one side of his face as enemy ships surrounded him completely. The pilot looked directly into his camera and smiled. Actually smiled. "If they want Earth." He pushed the fighter engines beyond safety limits. "They can choke on it." Then he rammed straight into a Dominion cruiser. The resulting explosion destroyed 3 nearby ships. Silence spread across the alien bridge afterward. One officer finally whispered, "They smile before death." The older strategist lowered his eyes. As the ancient archives described. Vial turned sharply. "What archives?" The strategist hesitated before activating a sealed historical file. A symbol appeared across the screen. Class 12 Deathworld species. Several younger officers exchanged confused looks. The strategist continued carefully. Most intelligent civilizations evolve on stable worlds. Mild climates. Predictable ecosystems. Images flashed across the display. Peaceful alien oceans. Calm weather systems. Balanced environments. Then Earth appeared. Hurricanes. Earthquakes. Predators. War. The strategist's voice became quieter. Humanity evolved on a world designed to kill weak creatures. No one interrupted him. Extreme gravity strengthened their bodies. Violent climates forced rapid adaptation. Scarcity created competition. More images appeared. Human history. Empires collapsing. World wars. Nuclear fire. Most Deathworld species destroy themselves before reaching space, the strategist said. Vial stared silently at Earth below. And the survivors? The strategist swallowed hard. They become feared by the galaxy. Alarms suddenly interrupted the bridge. "Commander!" Human fleets regrouping near the moon. The tactical display expanded. Despite catastrophic losses, surviving human warships were forming another attack line through drifting wreckage. Vial stared in disbelief. "They still have combat capability?" "Yes, Commander. But their casualties have exceeded projected surrender thresholds 3 separate times." That answer chilled the bridge into silence. Humanity had crossed every known limit for psychological collapse. And kept fighting anyway. On Earth below, civilians watched burning debris streak across the night sky while emergency broadcasts echoed through ruined cities. The fear was fading now. In its place came anger. Defiance. Unity. For the first time in human history, nations no longer fought each other. They fought together. Inside Black Veil, scientists struggled desperately to stabilize the alien reactor as power surges shook the underground facility. President Naomi Keller listened to military reports in grim silence. Dominion retreat probability increasing, one officer announced. Another shook his head nervously. But enemy fleets are massing near lunar orbit. Keller looked toward the glowing reactor. The war wasn't over yet. Far above Earth, Commander Vial watched human ships regroup through clouds of burning wreckage. Then he finally understood the truth. The Galactic Dominion had not invaded a weak civilization. It had cornered a species born from chaos itself. And cornered humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The Dominion retreat began at dawn. For the first time in recorded galactic history, an invasion fleet of the Galactic Dominion turned away from a developing world. Across Earth, surviving military forces intercepted the same unbelievable signal. All Dominion vessels are ordered to withdraw immediately. Burning alien warships broke formation and accelerated away from Earth's orbit. Massive carriers pivoted toward deep space while damaged destroyers struggled to maintain shield coverage during retreat. On the surface below, exhausted civilians watched the skies in stunned silence. After 4 days of non-stop terror, the invaders were leaving. But humanity wasn't finished. Inside the battered command deck of the Aegis, Captain Elias Ward stared at the tactical display through smoke-filled air. Half the station had lost power. Fires burned behind shattered wall panels while emergency lights flickered red across the bridge. One officer looked up in disbelief. "They're retreating." Another gave a nervous laugh. "We actually survived." Ward never smiled. His eyes remained fixed on the withdrawing Dominion fleet near lunar orbit. "No," he said quietly. The bridge fell silent. "They'll come back." Nobody argued. Because everyone understood the truth. If the Dominion escaped, Earth would only be buying time before the next invasion arrived. Ward turned toward the surviving crew. "How many ships can still fight?" The answer came quickly. "Not enough." "Good," Ward replied. Several officers looked confused. Ward stepped toward the communications console. "Patch every surviving fleet commander into one channel." Within minutes, voices from across Earth filled the bridge speakers. American admirals. Russian generals. Japanese carrier captains. European defense coordinators. Military leaders who had spent decades distrusting one another now waited together in silence. Ward spoke calmly. "The Dominion is retreating toward the moon." One commander interrupted immediately. "We should secure Earth first." Another agreed. "Our defenses are collapsing." Ward shook his head. "And if they return with reinforcements?" Silence answered him. Because everyone knew he was right. Humanity had survived by luck, sacrifice, and desperation. A second invasion would destroy them. Ward looked around the ruined bridge of Aegis. Then he gave the order that changed human history forever. "We finish this now." Across Earth, damaged human warships reignited engines one final time. Fighters with failing systems launched anyway. Crippled destroyers accelerated toward lunar orbit trailing smoke and debris. Humanity gathered every surviving weapon it still possessed and charged directly toward the retreating alien fleet. Inside the Dominion flagship, Commander Vile watched the incoming human formations with disbelief. "They're pursuing us?" An officer answered shakily. "Yes, Commander." Vile stared at the tactical projections. Human ships were heavily damaged. Outnumbered. Running on failing systems. Yet they continued advancing aggressively. No civilized species behaved this way. Retreating enemies were supposed to survive. That was the purpose of surrender. But humans no longer wanted survival. They wanted victory. Near the moon, the final battle erupted across a field of drifting wreckage left behind from previous fighting. Railgun fire tore through space. Missiles exploded against collapsing shields. Burning ships collided in silent flashes of nuclear fire. Both fleets were barely holding together. Still, humans kept advancing. Inside Aegis, warning sirens screamed continuously. Reactor instability critical. Multiple hull breaches detected. Life support failing on decks 3 through 7. Ward ignored all of it. Ahead of them, the massive Dominion flagship attempted emergency escape acceleration. If it escaped, the war would continue. Ward tightened his grip on the command rail. "Target the flagship." A young officer hesitated. "Sir, our weapons are offline." Ward looked toward the glowing reactor warning symbols flooding the bridge displays. Then he made his decision. "Open all frequencies." The transmission spread instantly across every nearby ship, human and Dominion alike. Ward's exhausted voice echoed through space. "You came to our world expecting fear." Behind him, surviving crew members silently prepared for impact. Outside the viewports, the remnants of humanity's fleet accelerated beside them. Broken ships. Burning engines. No intention of turning back. Ward continued. "But humans learned something long before we reached the stars." The reactor alarms became deafening now. Several crew members closed their eyes. Others smiled weakly. Ward looked directly at the Dominion flagship. "When the sky opens." The Aegis surged forward as its overloaded reactor entered critical collapse. Dominion sensors screamed warnings too late. Commander Vile's eyes widened in horror as he finally understood what the humans intended. They were sacrificing themselves to end the war permanently. Ward gave one final command. Full acceleration. The Aegis and the remaining human fleet charged directly into the center of the Dominion formation. Then the reactor detonated. A wall of white light consumed lunar orbit. The explosion shattered the Dominion flagship instantly and tore through nearby warships like paper caught in a star's fire. From Earth, billions watched the flash illuminate the moon itself. And in the silence afterward, no Dominion ships remained. 4 generations afterward, humanity would remember the words transmitted moments before victory. "When the sky opens, Humans don't hide.